Yes, hei alle sammen. Hjertelig velkommen til dagens webinar med Wunderbrand. Jeg heter Joakim Spakmo, er daglig leder i Wunderbrand Norge, og er veldig glad for at vi har med dere i dag. Vi har en veldig spennende webinar i dag. Nicholas Kuhne, som er grunnlegger av Wunderbrand International og ledende ekspert innen merkevarebygging, er med oss for å dele sin innsikt og erfaring rettet mot restaurantmarkedsføring. Med flere tiår i markedsføringsverdenen og med noen av verdens største restauranter på kundelisten, er Nicholas en som kan hjelpe din restaurant med å skille seg ut. I dag så vil vi fokusere på å styrke deres merkevaretilstedeværelse og hvordan dere kan øke omsetningen gjennom effektive markedsføringsstrategier. Dette webinaret er relevant for restauranteiere, markedsføringsledere og alle som er interessert i en moderne markedsføringsteknikker for restaurantindustrien. Før vi begynner, noen kjappe opplysninger. Webinaret er på engelsk, så sørg for at du har god lyd og video på plass. På slutten så er det en liten Q&A-runde, der du kan svare på spørsmål som dere har. Så her har du muligheten til å spørre Nick direkte. Han forstår norsk, så dere kan stille det på norsk. Ikke vær redd for at dere må bruke engelsk, men han kommer nok til å svare på ja. Så da tenker jeg at egentlig vi bare kan sette i gang. Jeg er veldig spent på hva Nicholas har å si. Jeg kommer også til å følge med for å lære litt. Så Nicholas, welcome and take it away.
Ja, tusen takk, Joakim. Beklager at jeg snakker ikke norsk, men kanskje neste gang skal jeg prøve å snakke hele tid på norsk. Okay, that was my attempt at Norwegian today. Hello, everyone. Awesome to have you here. And Joakim, thank you so much. The reason we are focusing on restaurant marketing today is because this is an industry that's constantly evolving. This is an industry that relies a lot on word of mouth, a lot on referrals, a lot on being seen. I mean, very often you walk past a restaurant and say, yes, I need to go there. Or, I wonder what their prices are, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very important in an industry which is also quite tough. I mean, restaurant closures and openings are at huge levels. So it's so important to make sure that you get some of the fundamentals right, which is your branding, your social media, your word of mouth. And we're going to talk a bit about a couple of examples in this presentation. So yeah, we're Wunderbrand. We are a brand strategy and design agency, and we try and help build emerging brands. So we first started in emerging markets, but now we are helping emerging brands. So brands that are not the Unilevers, not these big boys in countries like Norway, the US, the UK, etc. We give you the skills and the expertise to take your brand to the next level. So, as mentioned, we started off in an emerging market, so in South Africa, and we've worked all across the world. And we're in Norway at the moment. So we won't go through those in too much detail, but some of our offerings: social media strategy, content creation, social media community management, reporting, analytics. So those, if you want some more details on that, you can get that from us. One of our most exciting clients is one of the largest banks in Africa, Axis Bank, and we love sustainability. So versus just focusing on selling things, we are trying to change to sell ideas. And we've been very successful alongside Axis Bank in creating awareness for some wonderful sustainability activities. We've worked on wine companies, we've worked on cider companies, we've worked on all sorts of other alcoholic beverage companies and social media companies. And we've got a couple more folks joining us. Howdy. And Nando's, which is one of the coolest international restaurant brands. We've also worked on trying to build awareness of new products and companies. Yeah. So we've started just going through a couple of examples of what Wunderbrand does and where we're from, etc. But I think let's get started. And I think a couple of elements that we really want to focus on is the importance of a strong brand and a visible website. I'm going to go through these points in a bit more detail now. Where do your recommendations come from? What is brand visibility? We'll be talking a bit about your online presence, and we're specifically going to look at your Google business page. and a tiny bit about SEO and what does this mean. So we're a brand agency, so obviously we take brand very seriously. But a lot of restaurants will perhaps take the signage on their restaurants quite seriously and perhaps one menu, but the rest of the business is not aligned with what the rest of the brand looks like. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later. The second aspect here is recommendations, and uh, because recommendations are such a important part of driving sales to your business, we're going to look at a couple of areas where how you can improve recommendations, how to get more recommendations, and also how these recommendations are used to promote your restaurant across the various SEO engines. Okay. So for those of you who are not SEO specialists, I really took it down to the most basic level here, and we can, in the Q&A, we can go through a bit more detail if you want. But what is SEO? So the what is, it's a set of processes aimed at improving the website's rankings in search engines. The why is to get more organic search traffic to your website, and the how is fulfilling users' search needs in terms of relevance, content, quality, and user experience. So SEO is not just something that technical companies need to focus on. When we look at what, this is things like your on-page and off-page SEO. This is your technical SEO, making sure that Google um, can deliver exactly what your customer needs when they need it. This comes in terms of your opening hours. This comes in terms of making sure your address is correct, making sure that you've got that your description of your business is correct, so that Google or Bing or whichever other platform is using can actually get your restaurant in front of your customer. So these are some of the reasons why your SEO is super exciting. The why, to get more organic search. A lot of companies don't actually pay for advertising, and one of the best ways to get seen is by using organic search. But organic search is done over time. So you've got to build up your photography, your social media assets, your references, your referrals, and articles and blogs, etc., in order to build up your organic search effectiveness on your website, so that you don't have to pay as much, number one, for your ads, and number two, perhaps you don't have to pay for it all. Because with your business, your Google business page, you don't need to pay 1 cent for that. It's free. It's free. It's a free yellow pages for you. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we understand what kind of things are the customers asking for. And when we go into the next slide, we're going to see how Google understands what customers are looking for. So what we want to do is make sure that when customers are asking a question, we've got the answer for it. So we're not saying we are XYZ. We're saying we're looking at from the customer's perspective. What is the customer trying to solve, and how can we solve that? If you guys have got questions, Joakim's going to look at the chat, and he'll uh, stop us when we need to. So if you guys can just put up your hands on the at the bottom of the screen, there's a little hand of how many of you think you have a great Google business page. Okay, so none of you. Okay, that's good and bad. The good news is that you can actually do something about it. The bad news is that you're losing actual business at the very moment. So when you go into Google and you type in restaurants, or you type in best restaurant in Oslo, up will come a list of ads, but also up will come things like this: Dr. Pepper's, De Pepper and Rickshaw and Pizza Italiana, etc., etc. Based not on Google, but based on results from TripAdvisor. Okay, so that's one aspect we're going to see. The second is that we've got a nice little map here showing where all the restaurants are, etc. And it's got a couple of details here, which you'll see here. It's got the rating, so the higher your rating, the higher you are on Google. It's got details like how, pricing, the distance, opening times, etc., and a little summary here summary here of what the restaurant is. So when you are typing in your details on your Google Business, you need to make sure you've got those details. Okay. So these are done. Google does, this is something called local restaurant marketing or local marketing. And it's super important to make sure that you have your details correct there. You'll notice that if you click on one of these restaurants, up comes these details over here. So I've gone over here into this particular restaurant, and up come these beautiful photographs. It's got details. I can click onto the website. I can call. All of these are set up when you are setting up your business, your Google Business page. So remember that this is free real estate. If you are not updating this, if you're not paying attention to your Google Business profile, you are missing actual money. What you'll see over here, we've got views of the menu, so you can stick in your menu. But an important thing is that people can also put in their images of their meals, their experiences, etc. And then we go down over here. We've got the rating, and this rating is used by a lot of people to decide, similar to when you go onto Rotten Tomatoes or look at a Netflix movie. You're going to watch that movie or go to that restaurant based on its ratings. Now, you control a majority of this. However, for those of you, even if you're doing photography, for example, I think it was Marius or one of you folks who said you're doing photography, somebody else can actually make this page if you don't do it. So you have to own this page. So it's very important that you take control of your assets. Okay. So when I look at, if you haven't done it before and you go into the actual business page, you can see I can edit my profile, I can read reviews, messages, photos, look at my performance, edit products, edit services, bookings, Q&A, etc., etc. This is like a mini Facebook. So this is a mini Facebook page. And what a lot of people forget to do is they forget to add into Google Business Profile their latest specials, their latest social media posts, the latest blogs, etc., etc. If you put your posts into your Google profile, on that little discovery page, if you've got Google on your phone, on this beginning page here, you might actually see your restaurant come up randomly as well, without paying. So this is something that if you haven't updated, this is something we can help with, or you need to go and have a look at how you can improve this page and make sure that your exact same telephone number, your exact same address are highlighted in this as on your website. And there are schemas in that you can fix to make sure that the two are aligned. One aspect that people forget when it comes to restaurant marketing is the importance of photography. And a lot of people don't know that Pinterest is one of the largest visual directories in the world, and majority of people search via photos versus via text. So this is why you need to hire photographers. In terms of photography, very important to make sure that you have fantastic photography and that you do your SEO and your tagging and you put the right keywords into your photography so that it shows up. Because if you look at the top here on Google, I can press all, which will give me generic details, and then images will show me all the beautiful images. And you'll notice here with these particular images, you can see a specific style in Oslo of all of the fancy restaurants of what they look like. It's this very sort of dark and smoky look. So you could stand out by, for example, using this beautiful pink thing, or an aspect that stands out. We've got Google, and I mentioned that the first thing that comes up basically on the search page when trying to build the reputation of your brand is you can't just put your Google business page and have your own website. If you've got a restaurant, you've got to be on Yelp, you've got to be on TripAdvisor, you've got to be on as many of these different platforms as possible. And there are positives and negatives to this. One, the positive is that your organic SEO, so the way that you are going to grow organically without having to pay anything and be seen higher on Google, gets higher, but somebody needs to manage it. So if you've got 5 different platforms that you are using, if you've got 5 different platforms that you're using, you've got to make sure that your pricing, your opening times, your closing times, your address, all of those details are exactly the same across all of these platforms. Otherwise, Google penalizes you because it doesn't know which one's correct. Yes, Joachim.
So we got a question in the chat regarding the
Yeah.
SEO you just
Yeah.
talked about. So what's the best way to add SEO to photos as metadata or when uploading to a website?
So if you've set up your keywords in your metadata and it gets uploaded onto a website, then you've done your work already. You can do adjustments when you upload it onto a site, but for example, it can't be image 72. Obviously, the name of the actual image is important. It needs to be something that can be searchable. But then your alt text and your caption in those sections, that's where you put in a little bit more detail. When you go into things like Pinterest, you can actually tag a whole bunch more words on there. You can say it's pink, it's green, it's a hat, it's a chair. But and that does help the algorithm a little bit. So the more detail you can put into those images, the better. So your metadata, but I mean, you might want to strip some of your metadata. It doesn't. You might not necessarily need to know the exact time, date, and place. So that can potentially be stripped, unless you're looking for photograph of the Okavango swamp on the 12th of July, 1994, etc. So make sure that you have the right keywords and tags. And I think if you're using Lightroom and Photoshop, you can actually put in a lot of detail in that metadata so that you don't have to redo it when you upload it onto a website. So I hope that helps. Okay, so what I've just shown here is Yelp. We've got TripAdvisor and we've got Forbedre. So making sure that you're consistently on those is important. Okay. Again, if you look at the quality of the food photography, let's just be cognizant that if you look trash, people are not necessarily going to expect much. Now, another brilliant way of getting yourself out there is by getting onto websites that have high reputation value on Google. So here we've got little Anders and we've got this, the Nordic Nomad. There are a whole bunch of bloggers and food writers out there. My suggestion for you, and what's the benefit of them, is that they have very high readership and they have very high credibility because there are lots of links from them to specific restaurants and on social media platforms. If you have a link on your website of an article or reference to your restaurant from some of these folks, your reputation value, you get like a +1 point in Google. It takes you up. It doesn't have to be the expensive and the Michelin judges. It can be local reviews. It can be local bloggers. It can be student bloggers. Try and get as many references and photographs and blogs about your product or your restaurant, so that you can. It gives you reputational points. So just like in a game, when you go up levels, you get little reputational points, and this really helps how you are seen on Google. Now, we've spoken about a little bit about SEO. We've spoken a little bit about Google and your Google profile. But the next thing we need to manage is something called marketing consistency. And how we do this is our starting point is really by understanding our customer. So when I mentioned that Google wants to explain to customers, give customers exactly what they want. I think, let me just show you here. When you are typing in on Google, okay, I might show it a little bit later. It actually gives you an example of what people are asking for. We need to understand, are our customers families, male, female, which part of the country are they in? Are they visiting from overseas? Are they locals? We really need to understand our customer and how they are, what are the occasions that they're going to use our restaurant? Because even though we'd love them to come for breakfast, lunch, and dinner to our restaurant, there are specific times that people are going to utilize our offerings. So we need to make sure that our messaging is linked to that. The second is seasonality. Do we have sort of dips and troughs throughout the year where we're going to have um, more customers than other parts of the year? If we understand this, obviously, those of you who've been in business for a long time know that you've got seasonality, and you're not going to have 50 staff over December. If you're an outside, trattoria versus now when the sun is coming up. Do you run events throughout the year? So are there other activities? Are there scheduled events that people can look forward to in your restaurant throughout the year? And how do you explain what your brand is about? We're going to touch on this in some of the subsequent slides. Some of the ways that you can do this is through newsletters, a customer relationship management tool. And some of you might think, I'm just a restaurant, I'm selling pizza. Why do I need a CRM? Why do I need to have all of these customers' details down to that level? Well, we'll touch on that. Deciding what kind of social media channels we're going to use, because some of you might have a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Yelp, 50 channels, but you're a small business or a one-person business, or you've got a small team. Are you actually on the right channels? And do you need all of those particular channels? Do you know which channel is going to be the most effective one for you to drive business? Okay. And are there any additional activities that you're using to draw customers? And this is where the creative thinking side comes in. Are we going to get pensioners in on a certain day? Do we have authors coming to do book readings that we know there's a specific target audience that love them, that we can get into a restaurant? Is there a regular tango night where, yes, we might chase out some other customers, but we're going to get regulars in? Okay, so we really want to, our first starting point when it comes to marketing is understanding our customer, who they are, what they want, and how they prefer to be communicated with. And to demonstrate this, we've got a very nice monthly social media calendar example here. And we'll talk a little bit about consistency, but you can see this is a McDonald's campaign. And you can see that the consistency, when you see this, you know that it's a McDonald's page. The colors, the fonts, the type of typography, etc. And for a lot of you who are running your own business, you've got lots of great ideas. You've got great products, but you're not necessarily being disciplined sometimes enough to have a consistent social media calendar. And there are a whole bunch of tools out there that you can use by yourself, or you can use folks like us at Wunderbrand to do this for you. But understanding per day, per week, per hour, what are we going to be doing? And our social and our monthly content calendar is going to help you do that. I touched on consistency, and one of the things that I've seen, particularly in startup businesses, is that they get bored of the colors, they get bored of the photos, they get bored of the messaging that they use very quickly. So this means that after you've done 10 Instagram posts in pink, you kind of think, maybe the 11th one should be in orange, just to spice things up. We forget that we are seeing this business every day, the same message every day. For us, it might be boring, but this is about building that message in people's minds. They are seeing 50,000 messages or 5,000 messages a day. Your one, if they actually see it, is going to be very low in their consciousness. So that's why we have to have this importance of repetition, making sure that they see the same thing over and over, because we only get to touch on them a couple of times a week or a month even. Okay. So we want to create this expectation of quality and build trust. We also want to make sure that our quality of text, videos, etc., are very high. And this goes into being able to reuse one piece of content, whether it be a photograph, whether it be an article, whether it be a video, in multiple forms. So don't do 20 rubbish photos, do 1 or 2 great photos and reuse that and use that in various formats if that's what you can afford. And because we've got a photography here as well, let's just talk about, poor quality photos can do more harm than no photos at all. So for example, and I mean, this image on the left, we can see a beautiful little fly sitting on a piece of food, and this was in the food in the food photography. We want to look at expectations. So people get really annoyed. I'm sure you've been to McDonald's or or Burger King or one of those companies, and you see this beautiful, succulent burger, and then out comes this ridiculous little, squished thing on the left. And kids as well. Poor old SpongeBob. He really got abused in that plastic bag there. So the importance of being able to deliver what you're saying, that expectation between what you're selling and what you actually get on the plate has to be as close as possible. Otherwise, people will let other people know it. A nice way to do this for yourself, and how we as brand and design folks think, is we put everything sort of on a plate like this. So we put if you have a look at the colors, if you look at here, we've got cards, you've got tablecloths, etc., etc. This helps us see, does this design look aligned across all points? And you can see this as well. When we look at this, we can see that this is a brand that is consistent. This is a brand that is using the same fonts, the same logos, the same look and feel, and you can see it's within a family. And obviously, a lot of companies don't have the luxury of starting out with having 20 products or having all of this. But imagine you're now at the stage where you started out with one product and you added another one and you had the different name on it and you had a different color on it. It gives you an opportunity after a while to do a slight rebrand where, okay, we're at the stage where we've got 10 products, all of them are great, or 5 of them are great, and we need to get rid of a couple or rebrand some. It gives you an opportunity to make sure that all of your products, all of your messaging is consistent. And that's one of the things that we love doing. So this is a lovely example I saw just to show how consistent it's black and not black, even black and white, it's black and brown. And it really pulls through across all of these elements. And there's some other lovely ones here. You can see that in terms of color usage, in terms of the font usage, in terms of illustration style, you can see that these belong together. These are a family. And I want you to ask yourself, do your products come together and look like a family? If somebody had to see this alone, would they know that this is part of your business? And one of the things is, if you look at McDonald's and you walk around Oslo streets on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, you'll see discarded fast food containers. Even though that's very bad in terms of environmental, it is still free advertising for McDonald's and those companies because you do see their brands. Okay. Any questions so far? I am running quite quickly through this, but happy to answer any questions. So like I mentioned, and we've done a lot of work for the Japanese government. So we can definitely, and I'm going to go through a little case study now of what we did to drive sake restaurant sales. So maybe that will answer some of your questions, but we can definitely talk afterwards and see how do we get more folks to come sit down. So thank you for that. Restaurants are about not just feeding people, but making money. And one of the things that a lot of creative people do is they go into the restaurant business because they're creative, they love people, they love satisfying people, creating delicious meals and so on. But there are some practicalities that are sometimes forgotten. And what we want to look at is, what does success look like for you? And when I talk about this, it is, do you understand how many dishes you need to sell? How many coffees, have you really thought through your pricing strategy? And are you promoting the things that are going to be generating and delivering returns for you? And I've asked this to a lot of restaurants. For example, and I'll go into it there, so I'll touch on that now. But when we are doing campaigns, when we're doing marketing, we are doing it not just to create awareness, not just for a fuzzy feeling, but there has to be a real result that we're getting at the end of the day. The real result is going to be either customer loyalty, generating new customers, or getting current customers to buy more from us. And that's, for example, what we'd look at for the Japanese, the sit-down restaurant, is that perhaps if people aren't coming in off the road, we need to look at how do we use our loyalty system to get folks who already know about us to come visit us again. Okay. So planning, we want to think about, so in terms of planning for success, we've got early action. we know about seasonality. We know when winter's coming, summer's coming, etc. So if we can plan in advance in the year and say during summer, we know we are going to experience X, Y, Z, we need to plan for that and we can have campaigns for that. Okay. So that you can be able to exploit those opportunities. So, I mean, we can touch on Valentine's Day and all of these things, but very often it's last minute. Crap, we've got Valentine's Day in 2 weeks. We've got Valentine's Day in 2 weeks. That's probably not enough time for you to plan a proper campaign. So it's really about knowing what your year calendar is looking like and making sure you are prepared. Okay. So who is doing this? Is this you? Is this an intern? Is this an external company? Somebody has to be on top of this and coming up with ideas and managing this. And very often, small companies, your job is not to do social media. Your job is to deliver fantastic food. So who is going to do that for you? The big question I ask everyone is, what is your Big Mac? And Joakim knows this, has heard this quite a lot of times as well. So when I ask any of you, so for example, the photography person and the Japanese restaurant, what is the one thing that brings people that you are known for and that brings people back to your business over and over? If you don't have that product, you're in trouble. Okay. So why I say this is, if we look at companies like, or other brands like the Singapore Sling, Raffles restaurant in Singapore is famous for this Singapore Sling. So a majority of their visitors aren't actually people who are staying in the hotel. They are people who are coming to try this very fabulous cocktail. So, and they talk about it and they talk about it back home and they'll maybe try and replicate it at home. What is something that you've got that is going to bring people who know nothing about the rest of you, but they've just heard about something fantastic about you? And here I'm just touching on cocktails, but these are and you can get a lot of great information from Google. What are people Googling the most? So if you're trying to figure out, for example, on Japanese food or Chinese food or Lebanese food, etc., what are people in Norway asking about the most? You can actually get that information, okay? And you can figure out, okay, so pina colada, Aperol spritz, etc. These are the most popular cocktails that are asked about in those countries. Another thing, and because Norway, Oslo is also a tourist destination, what are the things that we need to be pushing out to people who've never been to Norway? Are these things that we can discuss? So, for example, I know they've got here in Sweden, they've got surströmming, and in Norway, fårikål. What is it? What is something that is peculiar or special to us that we can promote in the market that is going to make us interesting both locally and to international people, folks who are going to be visiting us? And what are people expecting from our particular type of cuisine? So here again, you can see each of these different countries has a whole bunch of different flavors that they are known for. So if you're getting a busload of tourists, you must make sure that you've got your Sulu and maki roll combo ready. So I'm going to just go through a quick case study of one of our recent clients, which is the J-Fudo, which is the Japanese department responsible for promoting Japanese products. And the reason I brought this up is I wanted to show how we go about setting goals for a campaign. Because if you're going to hire a company to do something for you, or if you're going to be doing it internally, you have to have a very clear idea of what you're trying to achieve. So we took all these photographs, came up with the concepts, etc. But the purpose of this campaign was to increase the consumption of sake in the UK, particularly London here, by building relationships between sake and increasing the amount of sake sold in Japanese and non-Japanese restaurants. So we wanted to shortlist 20 high-profile restaurants and create pairing menus. And the aim was to have a 20% increase in restaurants who weren't carrying sake, carry sake after the campaign. So we had very clear guidelines of what we were going to do. And the planning behind this was tremendous. So if we're starting at the bottom, we had the briefing, we engaged with distributors, engaged with restaurants, engaged with newspapers, etc. We had sommelier training, we developed all the website, all the creative material, we launched it, and then we did our review. So there was a nice plan We did tremendous amounts of photography with the amazing different pairings that we did. Um, when we did this campaign, I think we had over 40 restaurants, and we had to develop the social media posts for each of these restaurants. So we had to have a standard template that we could use, so that it stood out, and our naming, etc. For those of you who are just stuck on the traditional Facebook and Instagram advertising, there were some other options that we looked at as well. So, for example, there are a lot of fantastic local Norwegian podcasts, and they've got very localized listeners. So I would suggest you sponsor a small podcast. None of these podcasts make any money. They're very poor. And if they can be sponsored by a restaurant or have a giveaway, uh, where your target market is very similar, why not get in touch with them? Why not do something, either a pre-roll, or have a competition, for example, with one of these podcasts. We spoke about CRMs later, so your customer relationship management system. You've got to get your email lists up and running so that you can send, not by spam, but that you can send information, interesting information, out to your customers. There are different types of sponsored content, wine and food takeovers for newspapers, magazines, etc. And all of these traditional print mediums are starting to suffer a little bit. So they're quite open to lots of ideas. If we look at the Spectator Club, this was particularly focused on obviously the subscriber base of the Spectator. But we could do the same thing in Norway in terms of Facebook groups, on eating groups. There's a variety of groups that you can join and get involved with on social media platforms, on Discords, on LinkedIn, where you can be involved as a partner. So try and think a little bit outside of the box in terms of that sense. So, I mean, we obviously have done full page ads, competitions, so tastings, for example. So one of the things that you can do that isn't advertising alcohol is doing a tasting test of different, or pairing test of sashimi and sakes, for example. Digital banners, and again, sponsoring of very specific podcasts, and it's an underutilized medium, and quite undervalued in terms of how much you've got to pay. So that just a little bit of an outline of what we did there. Now, a lot of you are interested in generating new business. So I spoke about CRM systems. We spoke a little bit about getting referrals and making sure that we have people commenting how wonderful our food is, etc. And the aim is obviously to attract potential customers and turn them into repeat visitors. So do you have a loyalty program? You'll see the coffee shops with their little, you stamp, and on your sixth one, you get something free. But one fantastic way of getting more engagement, because this is what a lot of restaurants don't get, is they don't get engagement on their posts, is say, come into the restaurant, show that you have loaded a photo of you smiling with your partner, and get a free cocktail, or get a free breadstick, or get 5% off your bill. Those are ways that it costs you a tiny bit of money, but the amount of value you can get in terms of user-generated content by having people giving comments, and putting in their referrals, etc., is actually, each of those is worth 100 kroner to you, basically, every time somebody sends out a message or puts in a review. So what are you doing to engage with customers, to get reviews, and to share details about your business? Okay. It also gives them immediate reward for engagement, and that's always great if they can show the waitress or the waiter that they've posted on Instagram. Immediately they get a free XYZ, or they get a discount on their bill. That kind of immediate reward, especially for the younger generation, is very cool. There are also opportunities to use, free mocktail, free hat. Okay, no free booze. Sorry, I come from where we can do a lot of free booze. So we will have, I still have to, but we've got Joakim and Christopher, who are the specialists in that. And then we want to look at what are the best platforms to advertise on. And this is going to be very unique to each of you. So some of you might be more, it might be more beneficial for you to be on TikTok, or it might be more beneficial for you to write an article in a fancy magazine. It might be better for you to be interviewed about your seasonal catches, your seasonal vegetables. So it doesn't make sense for you to use all 20 social media platforms out there when only 2 or 3 of them are going to be useful for you. So you can figure this out yourself in 2 ways. One, can I afford and do I have enough time to manage all of these platforms? And are my customers there? So those are the 2 basic questions you want to ask yourself when you are at that stage. So we're coming up to the end now. So some suggestions I can give you to take away immediately is, number 1, optimize your social media profiles. Make sure that you've got consistency. Make sure you don't get bored with your own work. Make sure that you're consistent, using the same colors, repeat that same message. Talk about your Big Mac. What is the one thing that somebody is going to come to your restaurant for? And remember, they might come in for the Big Mac, but they might say, "Ooh, there's a special. Ooh, let me get fries. Ooh, let me get extra, extra, extra." It's just something that is going to differentiate you from the rest of the market. You have to make sure that if you are using 5 different social media platforms and have is that you're up to date, that on your website, your Instagram, all of your platforms, the email address, the phone number, the opening times, the address are exactly the same on all of them. And when I say exactly, I mean the comma, full stop, etc., have to be in exactly the same place. Otherwise, Google will think that your information is up to date, and it won't know which of those pieces of data to use. Remember, it's a computer; it doesn't have a brain. I would put regular updates and high quality pictures of your specials, etc., on your Google business page. It's very important to use that free real estate. It is free. It is, and Google pushes that very heavily. And that is what you're going to probably see first on Google searches versus what's on your social media. Get your marketing plan sorted out for the year. Understand what you're going to do per month, per quarter, and plan in advance, because you can think about all of these cool activities that you're going to do in advance and come up with good ideas and actually plan and have what are the results that you want to get out of these activities. Then you'll know how much money to put behind them and how much activity, and are they working, and should you do them again next year? So when a new manager comes in, because I know there's a lot of rotation of staff. And finally, just make sure you keep making great food and get people coming back to your restaurant. So from my end, thank you so much. I'd like to go into maybe a bit of a Q&A if there's some folks who want to chat. Before Q&A, I'm just going to go forward a slide quickly. For those of you who would like to learn more about marketing, would like to get some free advice, and would like to hear from some of the best marketing brains and entrepreneurs in the market, go to our Wunderbrand podcast, which is called From Startup to Wunderbrand. We've got discussions with all of the top marketers in SEO, email, personal branding, design, branding, for free, where I chat to all of these fantastic guys. So make sure that you sign up to that. And here we've got entrepreneurship lessons from 20,000 startups. So, I mean, there's some really cool stuff there. So that's my little sales pitch. I'm just putting the podcast link in the chat for those of you who need it. So please do like and subscribe. If those of you don't want to chat about your issues on the chat, you can get in touch with Joakim. Joakim, will you put in your email address in the chat? And then folks can reach out to you directly. All right. So thanks everyone for joining. And if you would like any more information, we don't just do restaurants. We do a whole bunch of other industries, but this is specifically for the restaurant business. You're welcome to reach out to Joakim or to myself. We are also, it's wunderbrand.no if you need our website. But thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to hearing more from you and any questions you might have. So thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, guys. Take care.